as it is News 6 Mornings, getting results.
It is 5:45 and time for Ask Trooper Steve. And Steve, today we're talking about stop signs.
Yes, so we came up with a list of questions that had come in, and this was one of the ones that kind of stuck out. Is it the same traffic violation or fine to come to a rolling stop at a stop sign as it is to completely blow through it?
That's a good question.
It is a good question, but remember, I always get things from a law enforcement perspective, okay? So let's be clear, both of those are not stopping, right? Like, at all.
We can agree on that.
We can agree on the definition of stop. Remember earlier in the years I was here, I defined what is stopping, and it is making, having your vehicle come to final rest, so that little rock, and then it's no longer moving. That's what they want you to do, so let's be clear about that. And I understand some people come up to it real quick, they look both ways, they kind of slow down and then continue through it. Now, if there's no other impeding traffic out there, officer discretion is a huge responsibility, and it's something I enjoy because not everybody deserves a ticket. Most do, but not everybody. Okay, hey look, I was a trooper, I had coupons for everybody. But at the same time, if you were to completely just eat this and disregard the stop sign, I can almost guarantee your chances of that ticket are going to go much higher.
Yeah.
But for the fine portion of that, they're both equally the same. They're both a moving violation. They're both here in Orange County, about 164. Other counties, 166. Just stop at the stop sign.
I can just say very quickly, a personal thing. The only time I've ever been in a bad crash was when somebody did a rolling stop.
Right.
And didn't see where, there was another car. All right, thanks, Steve.
If you have a question you want to ask Trooper Steve, go to clickorlando.com/AskTrooperSteve.
Okay.
So there we found out from a policeman what an actual stop is, right? Now we're going to see what drivers think that a stop is.
How much you love the nighttime for the morning?
I like those blue lights in the background.
Blue lights, yeah. Christmas.
Is it?
Pay attention. Sorry, I'm back.
I'm back.
What the?
Oh, there's the stop.
Well, they almost stopped. You gotta give it to them. There's nobody looking at stop.
Okay.
Okay, next one. Let's see what I do. They were slow.
Dude, all of these guys just are begging to get T-boned. There is a fence literally right there. How they can't see it?
Come on through!
Dude, are these all teenagers?
I don't know, but
Living
this
on
is
the
your Jeep,
edge?
buddy. This is your Jeep,
Oh,
right?
the Jeep guy.
You love
Those halogen round lights on. Oh, he stopped though.
Well, it's because there's 3 freaking cars on the intersection. They're like, we can all go now.
I'm impressed though. 3 stoppages.
Okay, white truck.
Oh.
Good brakes.
Is that my wife squeaking? It's squeaking right now. Coming in hot. F that crap.
So this guy goes like, here. It goes by super loud.
I'll admit, I was really surprised at this video. I thought most people did stop.
Dude.
Oh, there's kids on the school bus. How about the school bus, bro? Come on, they stop.
She wants to keep it dry.
It's your buddy.
Spool that.
Yeah.
Spool that turbo.
But he doesn't want to stop all the way. He has so much to get it going.
Well, it's $5.
It's getting lighter.
Dude,
I just went right on through that.
okay.
At least it's slow down.
I kind of want somebody to get T-boned. Is that wrong?
It's wrong. They didn't stop. It's because they drive over the truck.
And one of their fog lights is out. So,
From the Jeep. Come on out.
yeah, that Jeep
Come on
person,
out.
that Jeep, we've seen them numerous times. They don't know what stop sign is.
Hey, look. Hey, they stopped.
They actually stopped long enough to make up for the other guy.
F-150. Look. looked.
I thought about it.
Bright plumbing.
Oh,
That was close.
Oh, yeah.
They have to get close because they have a logo on the side of their truck.
You know what's funny is if their ladder shot off the roof, and then you know they really stopped.
No, he didn't do that.
What kind of car is it?
It's a
That's
Oh, logo. Not doing stuff.
dude. And you hit that sucker, you're not coming back.
Holy cow. Your money F-150. You did the same thing on the other way. Oh, this is a freaking flyer. Look at that. They must have watched the last video.
No.
Because they stopped.
No.
They fall asleep.
They're on their
Wait a
phone.
minute. They fell asleep. Holy crap. Look at the canal.
It's snack.
It's not paused because the leaves are still moving. Oh,
There they go.
Okay, that was it, Skylar. Okay. Now this is the moment of truth. How many of you stop at a stop sign?
How many will stop?
How many of you guys actually stop at a stop sign? Well, from that, I was really surprised because I thought everybody did, honestly. Like, I thought it was a normal thing to stop at a stop sign. And I watched several videos. Like, this was not the only video I watched, and a lot of people do not stop at stop signs. It's like a normal thing not to stop at a stop sign. And I was surprised because I ride with Jamie, my son, and he doesn't stop at stop signs. Like, and I was surprised that he doesn't stop at stop signs. And then when I watched this, I was like, there's a lot of people that don't stop at stop signs. So I was like really amazed at that. Well, anyway, so the sermon that God showed me, that was a while back, and I came up with this idea for a sermon, and it was stop, lose my, see, I have to write everything down. Stop, look, listen, and go. So then I totally forgot that I was supposed to speak on Saturday, and on Thursday, Lorraine gets a hold of me and she's like, "What's the name of your sermon?" And I'm like, I have to speak this Saturday. So I was like, well, I guess that's the name of my sermon because that's the only one I have. And I had like part of another one, and I was like, we're just gonna have to go with that one because you know our Christmas play is coming up and all that stuff. And I was like, I'm gonna have to go with the one I already have. So this is what I felt like the Lord had for us, especially for me because this is something I have a problem with, is stopping. You guys probably already know that. So here we go. Not that I have a problem stopping at stop signs, like on the actual road. I have a problem with stopping in life because life is so busy. And some people can actually like just sit down and chill. It's not a problem for them. But for me, it's a big problem. And so, as my children know, and as my husband know, and lots of you probably know, I went for years, this go, not taking a break and working 24/7 and disobeying the fourth commandment and, you know, thinking that it was all for the good of the cross, you know? And that it's okay, if you're working for the Lord, you can work 7 days a week, and that's okay. But how do we just disobey one of the commandments and just think it's okay just because we're doing it for God? So, this sermon is actually for me because I have had to work on this stuff and am still working on all this stuff. So if any of it hits home with you, I'm just preaching to myself. So Exodus 20, 8 through 9 says, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. And it's probably familiar to all of you that are here. It goes on to talk about what you shouldn't do on the Sabbath day. So for me growing up, we went to church at least 2 days a week, or 2 times on Sunday, and sometimes 3 times on Sunday. And sometimes we got in a nap on Sundays, but a lot of times we didn't. And then we would have a big meal on Sundays. And it just wasn't really a day of rest. Like, we didn't really get rest on Sundays. It was a busy day. And so then, because of that, and then of course, whenever I was working in the daycare, I bring all the kids to church on Sundays. It wasn't really a day of rest. So, figuring out when am I going to rest and actually have a day of rest was really tricky. And so, I just ended up working all the time and not really finding a day of rest. So what is important is to find that day of rest, no matter what day it's on. Even if you are even if you're a pastor and you're working all day on Sunday, it's important to find a day of rest on a different day. There's lots of jobs that you have to work on Sunday, but to find that day of rest. Oh man, I didn't write down where this is found, but if you need to know where it's found, I can find it for you, or you can Google it. But in Genesis, it says, by the 7th day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the 7th day, he rested from all his work. So even God rested on the 7th day. And I'm not saying that God needed to rest on the 7th day, but he did. So it was a good example for us, that we need that rest, and our bodies need that rest. So when God says stop, he means stop. Stop. You need that rest. Your body needs that rest. And when my body has been breaking down, and I've asked God, God, will you please heal me? I want to do your work. And, God has told me the reason your body is breaking down is because you didn't rest. You didn't take that day of rest. Your body, it's a consequence of you not resting. And so I know that this is a consequence of my disobedience to God. And, whether he chooses to heal me or not is his choice, but I am choosing to obey him now and take that day of rest once a week. And a serious day of rest. I'm not cooking on that day. I'm not cleaning on that day. I'm taking that day just to lay around and to really rest my body. And so, I've gone back and forth with him. Can I fold clothes while I watch a movie? I've gone back and forth with him on things like that. What is okay to do while I'm resting my body, So, because I'm very hyper, and so I like to be doing something all the time, but it's important. And so, then in Luke 10:38 to 42, and one thing that I was thinking about tonight with us using our phones for a Bible, and a lot of us do, but I was thinking about the, like how the FBI is saying we're under cyber attack. And I was thinking, we really need to get our Bibles out. Our phones could be taken, our Bibles on our phone could be taken away from us in an instant. They can just shut them down anytime they want. And we rely on our phones for our Bibles. But we need to have our Bibles handy. Also, for the sake of if we're on our phones, on our Bibles, our kids don't know, if we're on our phones reading our Bible, or if we're just on our phones. They don't know. So that's something else that I think about, unless we're reading them out loud. As Jesus this is in Luke, I already said it, I think, but Luke 10:38-42. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me." "Martha, Martha," the Lord answered, "you are worried and upset about many things. But few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her." And so, lots of times I felt like that I'm Martha, and that Darla, who is my sister friend, is Mary, because she's just so good at sitting at Jesus' feet and really getting into her prayer room and really, doing intercession. And lots of my intercession is done while I'm washing dishes, or while I'm cooking, or while I'm in the shower. And I feel I'm so I just always have to be busy. And I told my mom, I said, I'm pretty sure I would have been, labeled ADHD when I was growing up, if that was a thing back then. And she said, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure you would have been." And I was like, "Mom." But then I had to have a psych eval, and the lady said, "Yeah, I was diagnosed ADHD when I was 54. And I was like, pretty sure I know where this is going. So that's how that went. Anyway, so yeah, that's just how God made me. I just am hyper, but I still need to stop at Jesus' feet and calm down and just stop and listen to Jesus. And so when we come to that stop sign, instead of just keeping on rolling or running through it, or, I need to just stop and look and make sure that it's clear to go on. And so when we stop and look, so I was raised that you should have daily devotions, and my parents were consistent with doing daily devotions. So when I looked at, so stop, and then looking in your Bible, I started looking up is it commanded in the Bible to have daily devotions? Well, I've always had a struggle with doing daily devotions, with having it be one of those things, again, because I'm so hyper and I'm always busy, doing. It's been hard for me to just, get it into my routine And, you know, people will say, well, you should do it in the morning, the first thing when you get out of bed. Well, dude, I do not want to get out of bed until I have to go out the door. Like, I don't care about putting on makeup. I don't care about doing my hair, and I do not care about anything as much as I love sleep, except for my kids. Like, I love my kids, but I don't care if I eat. I don't care if my makeup's done. I don't care if my hair's done. Like, I just love sleep. And I know there's proverbs about love and sleep too. So there's all that. But I really, you know, I'm just not a morning person. I'm a night person. And I've looked in the Bible also about, you know, night people. I mean, is it right to be a night person, or am I supposed to make myself into a morning person, or what's all that? Well, I know there do have to be night people, because night people, you know, there's people that have to stay up overnight to watch over the people that are sick and things like that. So I was looking in the Bible, and I really looked about, like, for the daily devotion thing. And I mean, I'm not by any means saying don't do your daily devotions at all, but that was something that, you know, over the years that I have struggled with. And so the Bible says in Joshua 1:8, you shall meditate in it day and night, that you may observe to do according to all that is written in it. So does that mean that, well, first of all, meditating is to think deeply or carefully about it. So for one, that takes out, like, sit down, read your Bible, get through this many chapters so you can check off, woohoo! I got through that, and now I've done my devotions, and I'm gonna read through my Bible in a year, and I've done my duty. That takes that out. When it comes down to, like, okay, I've read through my Bible this many times and I'm good, that takes that out, because that's not meditating. Meditating is when you think deeply or carefully about it. And it also says day and night. So since I'm a night person, woohoo, God put it right in there that I can do it day and night. And so I can do it at nighttime too. So I got that. But when it says meditate in it day and night. So I got this devotion that really helped me. And what it was a devotional book that as you read through it, it had you write down, like, what really stood out to you about that chapter or whatever you were reading. And it really broke it down. It really helped you to meditate on His Word. And so I started doing that, like learning how to meditate instead of just reading a certain amount to check it off. Because I didn't feel like that was really what God was talking about. I felt like I was kind of missing the point. So I started doing that several years ago with some of the girls at the school. There were like three or four girls in that class that I started doing that with. They were teenage girls. And so we would read through a certain amount, and then I would talk to them. Okay, what stood out with you? First, I'd have them journal in their journal about what stood out. And then they would share with me what stood out about that. And I really feel like it changed their life. Like, all four of those girls are still serving the Lord. And I felt like I was onto something. that needed to be taught to adults too. That it was something that we were missing, like meditating on His Word. That a lot of people don't understand that that's the important thing of like, that a lot of people haven't done it or aren't doing that. And that it's not really about like, I'm not saying that reading your Bible isn't good, but that it's really about meditating on the Word. So I started doing that with different ones of the school kids, and it's really making a difference in their lives. I started doing it with some of the older boys, and I'm starting to see them really being affected by meditating on His Word and being able to pick out the things that affect them in His Word, and to understand that they need to pick out what really matters, what really means something to them in those scriptures. And that they're, instead of just feeling like it doesn't pertain to them, they're starting to understand it. And also, we started doing that in our family devotions. So we started doing that with our kids. And at first our kids would say, I don't know, none of that means anything to me. So I would say, well, what did you did you even understand? Because sometimes they would say nothing, they didn't understand it, or so we would try to get them to even say anything that they understood and go from there. And so slowly they're starting to give us, a little bit more of what they understand, at least, out of the scriptures. And we're starting to explain things to them. And then sometimes Tim will give them a whole sermon on the way to school. And they don't get any electronic time because he gives them the whole sermon on the way to school about that. So that's how that goes sometimes. But we are learning that I feel like I've learned something from that. And I'm like, man, we need to teach people to do this. Like, we need to have classes on how do you meditate on God's Word. It's like made such a difference with our school kids, and they're learning to do it. So I just love that. All that to say, looking through the scriptures, learning from the scriptures, there's not just one way to do devotions. There's not just one way to do it, but that's one way that that I found worked for me, and one way that has been working for the school kids. So I'm not trying to be judgy on like everybody has to do it this way. I just am saying that that's one thing that helped me. All right, so we've got stop, look, and then listen. So from the time that I was a little girl, I was raised in a Christian home, and I started hearing God's voice from a very young age. And I would hear Him like at times that I really needed to hear Him, like when I was like going through a hard time or whatever. I would hear His voice. So I knew His voice when I went away from the Lord. I still heard His voice, like when I was in bars and stuff. I would still hear His voice. Like one time I was sitting in a bar, and I was sitting across from my girlfriend, and he said something to me, and I literally turned and looked at him like, why are you here? Like, you're not supposed to be in a bar. But I knew His voice because He was my shepherd. I knew Him from the time I was a really little girl. And I just thought that this video was an interesting video of how we know the shepherd's voice. If we know our shepherd, we're going to know His voice. Psalms 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." And so many answers come when we are just still and listen. And because I have, through my life, had so much healing come through inner healing, I know that when I am having the hardest of times, when I am going through the hardest things, it is when I am still and take it to God and just listen, that His answers will give me, that He will come to me and give me an answer where I can hear His voice, and it will calm me and will give me an answer. On Friday at school, I had a little girl that was upset. It was only her second day at school. And she has some learning disabilities, and she was upset that she had gone off by herself. And I walked over there near her, and I asked her if I could pray with her. And I asked God what He had to say to her. Because God has told me not that I don't have to wait for someone to come and pray with these kids, that I can do it and I can ask Him what He has to say to them. And I asked Him what He had to say to her. And He spoke to her. And when He spoke to her, after He spoke to her, she said, she was biting her lip, and she said, "I can't hardly keep from smiling." And she said, "I didn't know before today if I believed in God or not, but now I do."
Praise God.
That's 2 days at our school. That's why I do this. The fourth thing in this lesson: stop, look, listen. And let me tell you, we were getting ready to leave for a field trip, and I could have very, very easily not stopped to take the time to listen to God at that moment. The last thing I wanted to do was listen, because I wanted to get everybody rounded up for our field trip. But I knew I had to stop and listen to God for that little girl's sake. The last thing to do is go. Now, a lot of people that are older think, go. When we hear the verse from Mark 16:15 through 16, and it says, "And He said unto them, Go ye into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature." Well, He was speaking to His disciples at that time, and does He really expect us, who are crippled and decrepit and whatever, we've got all our excuses, to go into all the world? Other people say, "I'm not a missionary. God hasn't called me to be a missionary," or whatever reason. And I understand all of that, but I looked into the Word to see, what does God say for those of us that He hasn't called to go to a foreign mission field? That we can't go into a foreign mission field for whatever reason, because our bodies are just breaking down, or whatever reason. Matthew 22:38 or 39, whichever one, I don't know because I can't read my own handwriting, says, "Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself." And when I read this, I know that I truly have failed, because I don't even know my neighbors' names. I really suck at knowing my neighbors. I do know the kids at my school, yes, but I am very bad at not even looking at my neighbor. I do not like to get to know my neighbors. For some reason, I don't want to know my neighbors. I don't know why, but I have something against my neighbors. I literally do. I have a really hard time being friendly to people. I am half introvert and half extrovert when I take the test, and I really don't like to get to know people. And I mean, I'm called to Native Americans, to teach at the Native American schools, and I like little kids a lot, but when it comes to adults, I try to avoid them as much as possible. And God has literally, he has really convicted me about that. And so I've tried a little bit harder, smiling at people at the airport. And I'm smiling at people at the airport. And he's like, isn't that enough? My parents are very friendly people, and they say hi to everyone. They literally go around and look at people's license plate and say, "Oh, you're from wherever," and I'm like, I don't care where their license plates are from. I'm just trying to get in and out of the grocery store as fast as I can, and I try to avoid the grocery store and send Tim to the grocery store so that I don't have to see anybody. But I'm seriously not that kind of person. I try to not have to see people as much as possible. I send my kids, I send whoever I can to go do all my errands because I'm just friendly to the people that I know. And so, being friends with my neighbor is when I saw that, I was like, wow, that's going to be a really hard one for me. I mean, that's a hard one. Love them as yourself. And I don't consider that I love myself that much, but I mean, I can say I love myself more than I love my neighbor because I don't even do anything for my neighbor. I buy myself stuff all the time. So, my grandkids, I buy them a lot of stuff. I don't buy my neighbor anything. Baking cookies? No, I don't bake cookies for anyone. So that's one that I'm going to have to work on a lot. So I was like, it'll probably be a while before I can give another sermon because I'm going to have to work on this last one for a really long time. I'll report back to you guys next December. So stop, look, listen, and go love your neighbors.